Have you been interested in writing a book and working with a publisher? Or maybe you're interested in possibly starting a publishing company yourself. I had the pleasure of interviewing Heather Fealty with Inner Peace Press and learned more about how she got started, what brought her into publishing, and how she works with her clients. Heather Fealty started Inner Peace Press in order to support independent authors to share inspiring soul stories from their own lived experiences. Soul stories are stories written from the heart that usually share a transformative life lesson. Through sharing personal stories, we can support others on their journey of self discovery. Sometimes all it takes is knowing we aren't alone. Inner Peace Press brings soul stories to life so there is more connection among us all.
I'm really excited to get to know more about you and your businesses. I was reading in your bio about how you first started at a nonprofit publisher. Is that correct? And that was your
Yeah.
first career for over 20 years?
I worked in the nonprofit art sector for over
Oh.
20 years. The last job that I had in that field was at a nonprofit. It was like a little museum where every 6 weeks there was an exhibition curated by somebody else. I had a lot of different roles. One of the things that I did was we started publishing a series of books on topics in the arts that related to the exhibition
Oh.
space. And so they were always anthologies. It's very long story short, but basically I wasn't sure what to do after I left the nonprofit, but I knew I wanted to make a big change. And so I created my own course called Love Your Life. And that's what Inner Peace Connection was born. As I continued working on that, I ended up, again, long story short, I got my yoga teacher training certification. And then I opened up a brick and mortar store to teach yoga. And then 2 months later, COVID came and that
Oh.
that experience. And then so I just transitioned from doing those in person to doing them online. And then at some point, I knew I wanted to do publishing. And one day, a manuscript came across my desk, and that's when Inner Peace Press was born. And that was a transparent diary. This little book right here behind me. It's a story of a mother's transition when her daughter became her son. And so, of course, it outlines the transgender situation, but it was really about the son not inspiring the mom, but opening the mom's idea of what is your identity. Um, and she was able to overcome her own personal traumas from her path um, to know herself better. And so that's where this ideology of how Inner Peace Press is working is it's really an extension from the work that I do with Inner Peace Connection, this knowing yourself, understanding who you are, accepting yourself, so that these books that I'm making now, mostly they're memoir genre, people sharing their personal stories of transformation so that the reader has hope, knowing that they're not alone or maybe understands a perspective of a situation they wouldn't otherwise know about. So it really is, it's on both sides, both the authorship and the readership, where I'm hoping that people will know themselves better. Because when we know ourselves better, we're more in line with ourselves. We're not as hard on ourselves, then we can be better to the people around us. So I'm hoping to create this ripple effect throughout people.
It's always fascinating to hear people's career and business journey because we may start off thinking that we're going to start here and that's where we're going to stay. And then we go with the flow of it. And did you ever imagine yourself doing what you're doing now
No, I
when you were
didn't.
working at the gallery?
Exactly, I didn't. And when I left, like I said, it was just, I went through that whole entrepreneurial, like crazy line thing, not just a straight line. And then after, when I did that book, the first book, I'm like, well, wait a second. Why didn't I think of this sooner? This is what I was doing for how many years? For like 8 years or 10 years, I was working on these books with this organization. And it's like, why did I even think about that? So I have the skill set. I have the passion. I've always been an avid reader. I always wanted to write a book. So that's in the works now. But in the meantime, I'm supporting authors, and it's interesting because so I have my undergraduate degree is in art. My emphasis was photography. I went on to get my master's degree in art history, theory, and criticism. And in my mind, it was to be able to help artists showcase their artwork. So I feel like I'm doing the same thing now. I'm helping authors showcase their books. So I'm like the behind the scenes kind of person helping them get their message out.
Mhm. And we were talking earlier about when you are working with an author on their book, there's so many parts to it. And your publishing company is a bit of a one-stop shop. I mean, I don't necessarily want to just use that phrase because I think it simplifies everything that goes into the book process. But let's say I have an idea for a book. Is that my first step to contacting you, or do I need to write it first? How does it work?
Great question. Thank you for that. Yes, I can help people at all levels. So I developed a writing coaching program to
Oh,
support
okay.
people. Most of the authors I'm working with are first-time authors. They don't know what they're doing. They've just been through a transformational situation and they want to share that with others. So typically the writing coaching, right? Somebody has a general idea for a book, but they're not sure exactly what it should be and how it should be. And so we work together and like for usually it's week by week. I work with people on the writing coaching. Sometimes at some point it goes every other week, depending on, what support they need. But we go through, we, determine who's this for? What do you want to get out of it? What do you want your readers to get out of it? So we're making sure that it's a valuable book to readers. And also my philosophy is you should know how the book ends before you start writing it, because then you have clarity as the author. If you know who it's for, you have clarity in the language that you should use. So you're not guessing and trying to please everybody. Doesn't mean a book can't appeal to everybody, but when you focus on one avatar, as we say in the business world, it just makes the process easier. I also support business owners who want to position themselves as experts in their field. So sometimes their books would be better suited for self-publishing. So in that case, then they can pay me to edit. Well, it's basically edited if we're working together. But yes, if somebody comes to me with that, I can edit a book, design the book, and help them self-publish it. I just helped somebody with a fantasy book that takes place in the future. Is very interesting. It was actually a religious inspired book, but it wasn't in alignment with Inner Peace Press. So I did the whole thing. I edited it, designed it, worked on the cover with her, and then helped her with the marketing part of it, like got her creatives, made a press release, all these little things that then she could use it and package it up and market it for herself to sell it. If it's in alignment with Inner Peace Press and I'm going to publish it, then I just don't charge for the editing and the publishing, and then I sell the book. And that's part of how a publisher, traditional publisher works, is that I'm in charge of distribution and then I pay out royalties to the author for books sold.
And then when you are the publisher for the book, then you're also marketing the book as well. Is that correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So I work in concert with each author to get their book out there. For the last almost 6 months, I've been running a monthly author network meeting. So
Oh,
I invite all published Inner Peace Press published authors to meet together. So we talk a little bit about each book, so they can each talk about it so they know about it, hopefully for cross promotion and that kind of thing. But then we give each other ideas about, or they give each other ideas about how they're marketing the book, what's worked, what has not worked as well. It doesn't mean it won't work for somebody else or that it will. But then again, it's just people have that front of mind and that they continue to work to sell copies of the
right.
book.
Would you help an author who's already self-published as well in terms of marketing, or more just focusing on your clients?
I just focus on my clients. I have, like, what you said was correct about the one-stop shop. Like, I can do it all, but I pretty much stopped at the marketing part because then I sort of spread myself too thin in terms of the self-publishing. Yeah. So I keep it focused on the authors who I've published.
Great, great. How would you describe the philosophy, or what is the mission for Inner Press Publishing?
Well, my tagline is bringing soul stories to life. So it's about inspiring people to accept themselves rather than change who they are. And also to basically be at peace, have inner peace about their personal experience. And it's really about that ripple effect of helping everybody kind of get lifted up and having more positive, hopeful influences rather than the negative things that we see every day in our lives. And it's also to dig deep. Like most of the books that I'm working on are very educational. And, a lot of the books have footnotes and, additional resource pages because we can keep growing and learning who we are to become better people. And not just for ourselves, but the relationships that we have, they get better and stronger. And, we're not as, we're not as likely to pick fights with people if we're settled with ourselves. So that's where the ripple comes from, and not just through readership, but it's actually growing as individuals. I have some people who want to work with me. They come to me either with a book idea, or maybe, they're thinking about writing coaching. And if their question is anything like, well, how many books are you going to sell for me? Then I realize that we're not in alignment, because I want to sell books. That's how I make money. But I want to make sure that I want to get books in the right hands, into hands of people who are going to read them. That's more important than just making a sale. Like, the numbers aren't important. How does it affect somebody at their soul level?
I mentioned core values in my last podcast episode, and I believe our core values are in alignment, because one of my core values is compassion and accepting people for who they are and who we are as well, compassion for ourselves. So it just feels so beautiful and in alignment with my belief as well, is that if we can accept who we are and as we are, and almost be in love with that, or there's like a loving, compassionate energy around that, then that can spread to other people and other relationships, even with people who we don't know.
And on that thought, also understanding that what we're going through, the struggles that we face on a daily basis, they're not there really to hold us back. They're there to help us grow. And, so it's like they are our life's lessons. So when we can see them as such, so that's why a lot of, these transformational stories, it's something that's been really difficult that somebody's gone through, but now they're past it, and they can look back and reflect and say, oh, I learned this, or, oh, I grew in this way. And that's what comes in for the reader who might be in the midst of that drama or trauma. It doesn't mean that it's going to be easy every step of the way, but when you can remember that it's just here to help us grow. It's not easy to remember it, especially when you're going through something difficult. But knowing that's really what it's about, and for me, important to bring forth.
I see how this is also in alignment with the inner peace connection business as well, and the courses that you teach. How do you manage having multiple businesses?
That was the hard part when I started Inner Peace Press, is that sometimes I say I'm a little bit have a fear of commitment. So like, I wasn't sure if the press was even going to last, but it's only been 3 years, but it's very clear to me that this is what I'm good at, and this is what is helping people. So what I did was I dialed back on how many classes that I'm teaching through Inner Peace Connection. So now I'm focused. I do chair yoga over Zoom. So most of my students are seniors, but it's, stretching, balance, this kind of thing. But I do 2 personal development type courses. Both are book studies, and I take ancient Indian texts, yoga texts, and we do book studies. I do those twice a year. So I've scaled back in the classes that I'm teaching there to put more of my focus on the press.
Do you do the do-it-yourself type courses as well, where people can sign up and watch something pre-recorded, or do you prefer the live cohort type of courses?
Right now it's been live. The intention is to make recorded ones. I have recorded the classes that I've taught, and I give those to students afterwards to be able to reflect on, but I haven't made it a standalone because I have them in the video. And so I have to figure out, well, I know how to do it, but to make the videos separately. So because I do have a lot of materials and journaling questions, and that's sort of, so the Inner Peace Connection, I was doing a lot of work with journaling. I did a course called Rewrite Your Life Story. And so that's how it segued into the press. So it was a very natural progression for that transition. So I think that there's a lot of value in making non-live classes, but still maybe having an ability to meet with somebody live is helpful, just to be able to reflect on what you have learned.
I agree. I know for myself, I'll sign up for classes, and if it's self-study, I can easily procrastinate on it and not
Mhm.
participate, or it doesn't feel like the information really sinks in without discourse. And so being able to talk to people, whether it's the instructor themselves or a community of people, I find helpful as well. I think
Yeah,
especially for
absolutely.
something like personal development and for spirituality and philosophy. I'm kind of curious about the books you're writing now.
Absolutely. So I started a book before I started the publishing company.
Oh,
And then just all these books, these other books kind of got in the way of me completing that. So it's still in progress, but it's essentially about meditation and how meditation is beneficial to you. That's something that's sort of in the back burner right now, but
mhm.
am working on. If I could just segue, is that 2 years ago I started working with two twin authors in Arizona. They write historical fiction for children's magazines, and I thought, quickly working
Oh,
so we developed Harmony Meets the World. It's a chapter book series for ages 7 to 10, and it's a typical chapter book series. It has a few pictures. The mom is an illustrator, so she's illustrated the books. But then in the back there's a journal, so kids get to write in there. There are fun facts. There's map. Those typical kind of things. There's a learn the language. So you tear this piece out, fold it up, comes in mini language mini book next to it. So we have this series. We're going to start with 12 different countries, 12 different languages, 12 cultural festivals. The goal with this book is for children to see that other kids in other countries are really like us. It's to show that there's more connection between us. We're more alike than we are dissimilar. This is ideally teaching kids how to accept, but also understand a different culture and embrace it and see the cool things about it. I'll have two other children's book series coming up. One of them I'm authoring, and that is for 4 to 5 year olds. And it's on yoga ethics. There are the 10 ethics. So there are 5 yamas, 5 niyamas. And there again, it's about how do I relate with myself and how do I relate with the world around me. So I'm partnering with an illustrator. She's got these gorgeous images. We're just about done with book one out of 11 book series. So it'll be the 10 ethics. And then the last one, it's about personal responsibility.
thank you so much, Heather. If people want to learn more, I will definitely put your links below in the description. Is there a favorite place that you like to stay connected with people? Are you on social media?
Yeah, I'm probably on Facebook more, but there's also Instagram. Yeah, and if people want to schedule a meeting with me, that could be found on my website through the publishing link there. So,
Great. Thank you, Heather. Thank you so much
see you
for being on.
again. Okay, thank you.